for a greatly lost partnership. A tree is falling. A monumental tree in the forest is falling. So colossal, so deeply rooted, so elementally entwined that it will not fall easily or swiftly or quietly. And as it looses from the earth, from the sky, earth first, it will shake and sound through the whole forest, through all the rings and canopies, hard and soft woods, all the places of light and shadow, growth and groundwater, quake and resound through all things winged and footed, flowering, streaming, flourishing here. And when, unmoored, unmasted, it lays at great length to rest among the abundant mosses and ferns, it will be monumentally sad for me to see, to lose, and remember in times to come how glorious a living thing it was, what a high, spiring, spreading hymn of joy it was. It sang without pause in the forest of my heart. Welcome, and thank you for leaning in to the latest Floating Poetry broadcast, the 52nd in my ongoing weekly series. Today, the first anniversary of the whole creation. There will be bubbly. Coming to you live from Shelter Harbor, from the chest-swelling seacoast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more poetically, more expressively, more soulfully, and yes, more heartfully. Last week, we ventured into the alchemy of memory and a number of life essentials to remember. This week, I invite everyone listening in to open, look, and feel into the ways and great wilds of the heart, of our hearts, of your heart. Big, beautiful, joyful to mournful to wistful, vital, primal, and often magical territory, around which I've sourced for us cultural commentary, poetry, thoughts, and inquiry that may illuminate, may resonate. Let's see. Why don't we enter with, from the esoteric tradition. This is from Parabola magazine. It's by a woman named Cynthia Bourgeot. The Way of the Heart is the title of it, apropos of our title. And she writes this: according to the great wisdom traditions of the West, Christian, Jewish, Islamic, the heart is first and foremost an organ of spiritual perception. Its primary function is to look beyond the obvious, the boundaried surface of things, and see into a deeper reality emerging from some unknown profundity which plays lightly upon the surface of this life without being caught there, a world where meaning, insight, and clarity come together in a whole different way. St. Paul talked about this other kind of perceptivity with the term faith, quote. He said faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But the word faith is itself often misunderstood by the linear mind. What it really designates is not a leaping into the dark, as so often misconstrued, but a subtle seeing in the dark, a kind of spiritual night vision that allows one to see with inner certainty that the elusive golden thread glimpsed from within actually does lead somewhere. Perhaps the most comprehensive definition of this wider spiritual perceptivity is from Kabir Helminski, a modern Sufi master. We have subtle subconscious faculties we are not using. Beyond the limited analytic intellect is a vast realm of mind that includes psychic and extrasensory abilities, intuition, wisdom, a sense of unity, aesthetic, qualitative, and creative faculties. and image-forming and symbolic capacities. Though these faculties are many, we give them a single name with some justification, for they are working best when they are in concert. They comprise a mind, moreover, in spontaneous connection to the cosmic mind. This total mind we call, quote, heart. The heart, Helminski continues, is the antenna that receives the emanations of subtler levels of existence. The human heart has its proper field of function beyond the limits of the superficial reactive ego self. Awakening the heart, or the spiritualized mind, is an unlimited process of making the mind more sensitive, focused, energized, subtle, and refined, of joining it to its cosmic milieu, the infinity of love. The contemporary phenomenologist Robert Sardello is another strong advocate for the full inclusion of the physical heart in any serious consideration of the spirituality of the heart. When he speaks of it, as he makes clear in his remarkable book, Silence, The Mystery of Wholeness, he's always referring to, quote, the physical organ of the heart, which merits this special consideration precisely because, quote, it functions simultaneously as a physical, psychic, and spiritual organ. It is this seamlessly tripartite nature of the heart's fields of activity that bestows its unusual transformative powers. Well, how about that? And I remembered there was the Heart Math Institute has come across my radar at times, and I said, well, I know they had something to tell us about the incredible electromagnetic field of the heart. So I went back and found that for us, and here there's an image of it, and the caption is, the heart's electromagnetic field, by far the most powerful rhythmic field produced by the human body, not only envelops every cell of the body, but also extends out in all directions into the space around us. The cardiac field can be measured several feet away from the body by sensitive devices. The heart is the most powerful generator of electromagnetic energy in the human body, producing the largest rhythmic electromagnetic field of any of the organs. Its field is 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. And it can be detected feet away, and they have very elaborate equipment they use to figure this out. So how about that? And they also talk further about the signals that are generated by your heart, for example, or mine, can affect others around us in that very field itself. And it can affect someone else's brain waves. I guess we could say maybe the heart waves, right? Their heart waves, as we know that happens when certain energies are commingling. And they can even synchronize, right? So how about that? Thought that you'd find that interesting. I came across a couple of other fascinating facts about the heart, a little more physiological, but interesting. A unique organ that has components of both muscle and nervous tissue. Part of the cardiovascular system, the job, of course, is to pump blood to the cells and tissues. But did you know that your heart can continue to beat even if it is not in your body? I definitely did not know that. It pumps 1 1/3 gallons of blood in 1 minute at a time. And the part I liked the most, I thought was most interesting, was, about the beating by itself, that the electrical impulses from heart nodes cause it to beat, and as long as it has enough energy and oxygen, it can continue to beat outside your body. But going back to that synchronizing idea, there was a University of California, Davis study that showed that couples breathe at the same rate and have synchronized heartbeats. How about that? So, yes, it's a wildly interesting physiological organ, amazing in that way, electromagnetically, emotionally, romantically, spiritually, symbolically, mysteriously. We could go on. It has so many qualities, and as I was bringing material together, including my own poetry and other poetry, no surprise, I had an immense amount of poems that relate to the heart in all its different dimensions. Here's one from some years back in New York City. The heart is a remarkable thing. It can become sick over many things, over loss of faith or fortune, death of a loved one, dreams deferred, disappointments or disbeliefs, seeing suffering. Then somehow, often miraculously heal, learn to reopen, sing, feel joy again. Joseph Stroud has an interesting poem about our distant forebears. And I thought that very intriguing. You wonder way back in time. This is called Becoming Human. From bits of jawbone, pelvis, a femur, anthropologists reconstruct the skeleton of Homo habilis, a primate who looks part ape, part human, earliest ancestor of Homo sapiens. We know this creature used crude stone tools and lived in small groups, a hunter-gatherer on the African savanna 2 million years ago. But we don't know whether they could speak, whether they had a language beyond gutturals or grunts. We know they could walk upright, but we know nothing of those nights when they slept together. Did they hold and comfort each other? What did they make of the stars crossing over? And at dawn when the sun rose, did they catch their breath? Were they able to laugh and weep? Could they imagine, envision their own unthinkable personal death? Thank you, Joseph Stroud. I came across also a poet I don't know a lot about, although I have a collection of hers, and I remember really spent a lot of time with it, but I did the other day as I was preparing for us. Anne Michaels, and her poem about the heart's longings, it's called The Passionate World, is round. For days we sail, 4 months, and still the way is new, strange stars, drawn to you, taut over time, ropes connect this floating floor to the wind, fraying into sound. To arrive is to sleep where we stop moving, past the shoal of clothes to that shore, heaped with debris of words, a hem of salt, white lace, on sea-heavy legs. Love longs for land. All night we dream the jungle's sleepy electricity. Gnashing cords of insects swim in our ears, and we go under, into green. All night love draws its heavy drape of scent against the sea, and we wake with the allure of earth in our lungs, hungry for bread and oranges. Salamanders dart from your step's shadow, disappear among wild coffee, fleshy cacti, thorny succulents, and flowers like bowls to save the rain. We are sailors who wake when the moon intrudes, the smoky tavern of dreams, wake to find a name on an arm or our bodies bruised by sun or the pressure of a hand. Wake with the map of night on our skin, traced like moss-stained stone. Lost past the last familiar outpost, flat on deck, milky light cool on our damp hair, we look up past the ship's angles to stars austere as a woodcut, and pray we never reach the lights of that invisible city where, landlocked, they have given up on our return. But some nights, woken by wind, looking up at different stars, they are reminded of us, the faint taste of salt on their lips. Thank you, Anne Michaels. I wrote this next poem for a dear friend, mentor of near 40 years, and it could be true for some of you also, and worth honoring in that way. This was for Richard Russack on his birthday, back in 2020, actually, last year. The going out, the coming in of so much, and still, despite the ebbings, the recedings, there has always been a great flowing of energies, yours, shaped with constancy by the forces of your moon, sun, and earth, your mind, heart, and high rising spirit on the tide. Well, I like other poets not least, believe the earth itself, the conscious earth, has a kind of heart, one that we can feel into. Pablo Neruda's poem points to that for me. The morning is full, is the title. The morning is full of storm in the heart of summer. The clouds travel like white handkerchiefs of goodbye, the wind traveling, waving them in its hands. The numberless heart of the wind beating above our loving silence. Orchestral and divine, resounding among the trees like a language full of wars and songs. Wind that bears off the dead leaves with a quick raid and deflects the pulsing arrows of the birds. Wind that topples her in a wave without spray and substance without weight and leaning fires. Her mass of kisses breaks and sinks, assailed in the door of the summer's wind. Thank you, Neruda. Well, I was coming back to finish preparing for the program tonight, and a poem came into me. Now, they sometimes come a little bit ahead if they're coming, but it came in today. So I think it's finished enough, ready enough to share with you. I feel like I'd like to, because it fits right into all of this. It's called Being. In the heart of the forest, of the jungle, of darkness, of yourself, standing still, in the heart of places far larger than you ever imagined, taking in, drinking in all the immensities, all the intensities, where streams of primal feelings, visceral knowings, flow through your body, echo clearly through every openly, deeply receiving chamber. Being. Evan Boland has this poem that speaks to the heart of a moment, right? So there can be different kinds of hearts. Heart of a moment that can last forever or certainly last a long time in memory. A neighborhood at dusk. Things are getting ready to happen out of sight. Stars and moths and rinds slanting around fruit. But not yet. One tree is black. One window is yellow as butter. A woman leans down to catch a child who has run into her arms this moment. Stars rise, moths flutter, apples sweeten in the dark. We also know places have a spirit, and houses. Many houses have spirits, some of them very strong. I'm sure some of you would acknowledge that or affirm that. Certainly places I've lived in and imprinted and added my own spirit to, as we do, yes. So they can have very felt hearts, and these were dear friends in Germany and Berlin, and I felt that in their house. I felt very much the heart of the house itself, and of course their hearts as well, intermingling with all that. This is for Rolf and Gabriela. Alas, he's not with us anymore in physical form, but he's certainly in spirit form. And this poem is called Love is Blooming, Liebe blüht. And life at Nummer 1 Ritterstrasse, in a sun-kissed corner of Berlin, where antique pink roses bloom in the bath, parrot tulips perch and blush on the kitchen table beside a large bowl of fruit, as party-colored flocks of butterflies flutter freely over the walls. Here a goddess octopus undulates bluely and greenly in the corner where you pass for coffee or muesli, cheese or Riesling. A stately old radiator, tall and cream-complexioned, contains a filigreed cabinet with double doors of moss green that awaits muffins or mittens for warming. A charming Begründerzeit touch. Out extra-wide French doors, unlit lanterns dream of summer nights. A riot of flowering vines awaits official spring. Clay pots, also patient, begin to conjure greenery, and a wicker canopy tilts in a jaunty gentleman way above signs that point to the beach, but no diving, bitte, from the deck into the blue pool below. In the low-slung living room of pillowy sofas and plump chairs and old-world yellows, browns stand still. 2 cows have slipped out of their skins and disappeared, au nature, perhaps east to Ludorf, Müritz, and even greener pastures. While above, on the upper deck, under full sails and brass-buttoned sailors, you discover a port-holed lounge, a well-dressed passage where you can also pedal, a sunken bedchamber for sleeping beauties, 2 to be exact, and of all things, a trumpetarium trumpetarium gleaming with rows of old horns polished and tarnished, a golden megaphone Rudy Valley could love, a German derby held out blackly and whitely, politely, from no hand, all silently resonating the songs, singers, Berlin dances, dancers they shared delight, Lieblichkeit with, decades of nights and nightclubs ago. I felt that the songwriter I've brought up once in a while, songwriter, singer, performer Nick Cave, might have something worthwhile to say toward our theme. This is from one of his Red Hand files, which you can subscribe to. It comes out roughly once a week or so. Always interesting. He said back in October of 2019 in that one, "My duty as a songwriter is not to try to save the world, but rather to save the soul of the world. This requires me to live my life on the other side of truth, beyond conviction and within uncertainty, where things make less sense. Absurdity is a virtue and art rages and burns. Where dogma is anathema, discourse is essential, doubt is an energy, magical thinking is not a crime, and where possibility and potentiality rule, the answers to the secrets of the heart may just be there, in the inscrutable dark of the forest, in the unfathomable depths of the sea, at the uncertain tips of our fingers." Nick Cave. You might feel as I do that the flame of the heart, that eternal flame in its way, our hearts, your heart, burns in its elemental way, to me, mirrored in the burning of a fire, of a hearth or some other form of firelight. And I thought of Jane Hirschfield's poem from her collection, The Lives of the Heart. The fire. Again open the book of reds and golds. Study the faces of poppy and lion, the bright carpet, tapetum lucidum of your own life. What looks back and seems to be burning is burning, though not all the same. In the moment of turning away from rain, the day gives off red and gold, the slightest scent of peaches. This too, so you might know things as they are, so you who are already walking within will come in. Why else take up the body's single candle, if not to see how everything is consumed? Thank you, Jane Hirschfield. Well, think, as you might have already done, of all the heart expressions we have in our languages, English and otherwise. So many, from have a heart to broken heart to wholehearted, open-hearted, light-hearted, and on and on. I liked the aspect of, of course, listening to your heart. So important. If we can do that, I think that's the biggest thing we can do. But here's an application of that by the writer back in times, the writer Saul Bellow, who said, "I discovered that rejections are not altogether a bad thing. They teach a writer to rely on his own judgment and to say in his heart of hearts, 'To hell with you.'" I appreciate Tosha Silver's quote. She's the author of Outrageous Openness. Delightful book. Definitely inspirational. This is a quote on remembering your truth. "Learn to remember the truth you once knew in your own heart before they trained you to forget." Well, so I never forget. One of my rituals each morning, among others, a daily ritual, is to touch in on and with my heart. And I ask myself a question. And the question is this. You might want to try it yourself if you're interested. I say, today, am I full-hearted today? Am I open-hearted? Am I clear-hearted? Am I strong-hearted? So I look at the four chambers and think of them that way. And then I answer that for myself and hopefully the answer is a good answer and I carry on into the day. Dorian Laux has a poem that takes us through many facets, fancies, and figuratives, I would call them, of the heart. The poem is simply titled Heart. The heart shifts shape of its own accord, from bird to axe, from pinwheel to budded branch. It rolls over in the chest. A brown bear, groggy with winter, skips like a child at the fair, stopping in the shade of the fireworks booth, the fat lady's tent, the corn dog stand. Or the heart is an empty room where the ghosts of the dead wait, paging through magazines, licking their skinless thumbs. One gets up, walks through a door into a maze of hallways. Behind one door, a room full of orchids. Behind another, the smell of burned toast. The rooms go on and on. Sewing room with its squeaky treadle, its bright needles. Room full of file cabinets and torn curtains. Room buzzing with 1,000 black flies. Or the heart closes its doors, becomes smoke. A wispy lie curls like a worm and forgets its life, burrows into the fleshy dirt. Heart makes a wrong turn. Heart locked in its gate of thorns. Heart with its hands folded in its lap. Heart a blue skiff parting the silk of the lake. It does what it wants, takes what it needs, eats when it's hungry, sleeps when the soul shuts down. Bored, it watches movies deep into the night, stands by the window counting the street lamps, squinting out one by one. Heart with its 100 mouths open, heart with its 100 eyes closed, harmonica heart, heart of tinsel, heart of cement, broken teeth, redwood fence, heart of bricks and boards, books stacked in devoted rows, their dusty spines unreadable, heart with its hands full, hieroglyph heart, etched deep with history's lists, things to do, nearsighted heart, club-footed heart, hard-headed heart, heart of gold, coal, bad juju heart singing the low-down blues, choir boy heart, heart in a frumpy robe, heart with its feet up reading the scores, homeless heart dozing, its back against the dumpster, cop on the beat heart with its black billy club, banging on the lid. Thank you, Dorian Laux. Then we have our wonderful David Whyte, whose poem The True Love takes us to the depth and powerful pull of our heartful natures, and does so rather knowingly, I'd say. The true love, one word. There is a faith in loving fiercely the one who is rightfully yours, especially if you have waited years, and especially if part of you never believed you could deserve this loved and beckoning hand held out to you this way. I am thinking of faith now, and the testaments of loneliness, and what we feel we are worthy of in this world. Years ago, in the Hebrides, I remember an old man who walked every morning on the gray stones to the shore of the baying seals, who would press his hat to his chest in the blustering salt wind and say his prayer to the turbulent Jesus hidden in the water. And I think of the story of the storm and everyone waking and seeing the distant yet familiar figure far across the water calling to them, and how we are all preparing for that abrupt waking and that calling, and that moment we have to say yes, except it will not come so grandly, so biblically, but more subtly and intimately in the face of the one you know you have to love. So that when we finally step out of the boat toward them, we find everything holds us and confirms our courage. And if you wanted to drown, you could, but you don't. Because finally, after all the struggle and all the years, you don't want to anymore. You've simply had enough of drowning, and you want to live, and you want to love, and you will walk across any territory and any darkness, however fluid and however dangerous, to take the one hand you know belongs in yours. Thank you, David Whyte. Well, this made me think of a poem of mine of offering a hand with heart, of succor, of support to others that we can in our lives. And this is called To You of Hidden Heart. Of sad or lonely, longing and deserving heart hidden from view. I hold out a hand to yours. Sense what you cannot say in words or feel easy to show. Offer a gentleness to soften your reticence, a safe harbor for your hiddenness, a place for your heart to enter and freely drop its sometime achingly heavy anchor. So, how and where are we, or can we be this for others? Greg Lavoie, from his book Callings, I love quoting him. He applies to so many things recently. It's very interesting. I'm still reading along in the book, but this was about having heart-to-hearts of interesting kinds with ourselves and within ourselves. So I'm going to share this with you. This is very provocative and I feel very meaningful. Just a moment for a sec. You can enter into a dialogue with the forces that formed you. You can talk with your father or mother, with the house you grew up in, with the biggest decision of your life, with your most powerful conviction, or with the ghost of whatever saint has hovered near you all your life. I once talked with Elijah, the spirit of freedom, for whom my family always reserved a chair and a glass of wine during Passover celebrations, but who, at least to my untrained eyes, never seemed to come. I asked him what it takes to be truly free. In the book, The Mystery of My Story, Paula Farrell Sullivan recounts the experience of a man who wrote a lengthy dialogue with his old algebra book, realizing in the process that what had deterred him from entering medical school was his fear of math. He also discovered that his option was still open to him. This call still called to him, and so in his 40s he quit his job and went to medical school, following what Robert Frost called, quote, the road not taken. By opening the inactive file, says Progoff, we may discover the lost opportunities of our lives. Though some of them are dead, others are merely dormant. We might remember the times we held off fateful encounters with the truth, avoided dealing with something we have never since been able to shake, or suffered a crisis whose message completely escaped us. We may see the times we followed the path of reason rather than intuition, the path of least resistance rather than the right way. We may remember unfinished business and decide that we can find meaning in finishing it, possibly even revelation. In the 19th century, Progoff describes in At a Journal Workshop, a group of archaeologists discovered an ancient Egyptian tomb in which lay a portion of a tree. Embedded in the wood was a seed which they planted merely to see if anything would happen. They never expected that after 3,000 years the seed would grow, but it did. Thank you, Greg Lavoie. And I ask, what if such a seed has lain inside your heart a long time waiting to grow? Rumi has a poem on the heart and what to give it to. This always inspires and reaffirms things for me. If you are seeking, seek us with joy. By the way, the title of the poem, let me start over. It's called Suns Exist. S-U-N-S. If you are seeking, seek us with joy, for we live in the kingdom of joy. Do not give your heart to anything else but to the love of those who are clear joy. Do not stray into the neighborhood of despair, for there are hopes. They are real. They exist. Do not go in the direction of darkness. I tell you, suns exist. Thank you, Rumi. Well, speaking of suns and radiance, is my poem of its kind, written back in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, actually April of 2017, so 4 years ago there when I was doing a poet in residency. A wonderful place there on DeGraw Street, an old Lutheran church, remade into a house. This is called sun bathing. Not the kind you do on a spread of gold sand and blue ocean. No. The sun of a lover's beholding eyes you bathe in, of a mother's cherishing eyes you bask in, of your own eyes warming you as you gaze in the mirror of your greatly radiant heart. Well, that absolutely made me want to dovetail Derek Walcott's poem with that. His poem "Love After Love," a beautiful invitational poem to come back to our own dear hearts, the heart of your innermost self, most beautiful, innocent self. Love after love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself, arriving at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome, saying, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Thank you, Derek Walcott. And what are the downsides of not nourishing our hearts? Maybe you're very aware of them, maybe you're not, or haven't thought about them very much, of not doing that kind of feasting, or even at that extreme, just maybe daily regimen of being nourished by your own heart. And what has life taught you about this or shown you? Well, there is an imperative for me, and maybe I can give you a bit of that from my side of things, your poet here. Going hungry is this poem. What happens when you don't feed your heart, your soul, the deep nourishment it needs, it deserves? The daily regimen, bread and wine of joy, of deep loving, being deeply loved, as essential as the air you breathe, to sustain the whole of living. Going hungry, going without this way, without this bounty of milk and honey for your spirit body, flesh and blood body, is no way for anyone to be or choose, no way for you to thrive or stay vitally alive, especially when it's all there for the inviting, the allowing, and partaking. The poet Lynn Unger, on following your heart's fancies, asks a lovely lyrical question. And you, she says, what of your rushed and useful life? Imagine setting it all down, papers, plans, appointments, leaving only a note, quote, "Gone to the fields to be lovely. Be back when I'm through with blooming." Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn Unger. Well, also let us not forget the heartfulness of animals, domestic and wild, that we cherish in whatever way we cherish them. For me, there are so many animals I've had in my life, but domestic animals, cats and dogs, but also the wild ones I commune with, from the herons to the robins. And so here's one called the robin. Very inspiring to me. The robin sings its song, its whole self, from the center, the bright red center of its breast, never hesitates or longs to sing out its winged soul, simply does, no matter the day or whether anyone is listening. And what of us and our life song? What of those afraid or waiting, unsure or forgetting their natural calling? Shall they, be like the robin and follow, take heart, and let forth without bother or further ado our own springing music, the pure song we each have to sing, can sing, into every day we have breath, into every moment we're living, here in the inviting air. We must, of course, around the ways of the heart, speak of love a bit more. I know we started on that note. And there is, among other kinds, the incredibleness of of great love, of true romance and deep intimacy, which is such a gift to have, to experience if and when we did or do or will. So I have a handful of poems toward that. This is a poem for a great love of mine in the past, and it's called Diving In. I dive headlong, heart-long, into the yellow waves of your hair, into the billows of your smile, the celadon waters of your eyes, into your innocence, your skinfulness, your motioning undersea garden. Diving in. There's too the heart dance of lovers coming together in life, like these dear friends of mine did. April and Brad, they're living out in Denver right now. Hicks and Hammer. This was on their marriage. I read this for them at their wedding. It's called Lovers. Romeo and Juliet crossed stars. Abelard and Heloise faced swords. Lancelot prized Guinevere more than words, more than the fabled knights and whole kingdom of Camelot combined. Catherine and Heathcliff, we know, rose to wuthering, dizzying heights of desire. Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara were swept away in a wild wind of romance. Damn the battles raging outside and within. And you, arching and shining into marriage lovers, passionately chosen partners, enter now with bliss and great promise into a deeply shared, doubly shaped future, into your own heartful, remarkable, and real life adventure. And there's another couple, beautiful partnership that I have honored over the years, and this was on their 17th anniversary, Rachel Menard and Douglas Phillips out in San Francisco way. It's called Swaying. Together, with the moon, with the wind, the wild ocean waves, with the risings of desire, the songs and silences of the soul, with the tides and tempests and testaments of living and loving, with the deeper rhythms you have found and followed, made and echoed, that keep you so beautifully, so passionately swaying. I have another Neruda poem for us. He has so many supreme love poems. This is a resonant favorite. So much feeling wells up from it, and may for you. Sonetos de Amor. And now you're mine. Rest with your dream in my dream. Love and pain and work should all sleep now. The night turns on its invisible wheels, and you are pure beside me as a sleeping amber. No one else, love, will sleep in my dreams. You will go, we will go together over the waters of time. No one else will travel through the shadows with me, only you, ever green, ever sun, ever moon. Your hands have already opened their delicate fists and let their soft drifting signs drop away. Your eyes closed like two gray wings, and I move after, following the folding water you carry, that carries me away. The night, the world, the winds spin out their destiny. Without you, I am your dream. Only that. And that is all. Thank you, Neruda. We also have Rainer Maria Rilke and his paean to lovers and their innocence. Sonnets to Orpheus, number 4. Oh, you lovers that are so gentle, step occasionally into the breath of the sufferers not meant for you. Let it be parted by your cheeks. It will tremble, joined again behind you. You have been chosen. You are sound and whole. You are like the very first beat of the heart. You are the bow that shoots the arrows, and also their target. In tears your smile would glow forever. Do not be afraid to suffer. Give the heaviness back to the weight of the earth. Mountains are heavy. Seas are heavy. Even those trees you planted as children became too heavy long ago. You couldn't carry them now, but you can carry the winds and the open spaces. Thank you, Rilke. Well, here's another piece of mine that seeks to express that feeling one has that I hope a number of you have, of being so beautifully sheltered in a deeply loving relationship. Sheltering Arms is the name of this poem. How good fortune to have been in them for large parts of my life, having other dearly loved and loving ones nestling in mine, in that place of safest harbor, gentlest surrender. However stormy or precarious the outside or inside weather, warm, welcoming arms, tenderly enfolding arms, I still sometimes dream of, long for, as my now open-watered, for now unsheltered living goes on. Well, there's a beautiful song I actually, if we had more time, I would sing to you, but I'm going to do that maybe another time. The poem's called Once Upon a Time. It's one of my most favorite songs. It's all about bittersweetness, which it's delicious in its own way. I gave a recital back from my family and dear friends many decades ago, or quite some time ago, and this was one of the songs that I sang and loved ever since. So I share it with you another time. I'll promise that to you. Well, among the many things I've learned about the heart and love, its immensities and still annoys is this poem. Love is. Love is a four-letter bird of paradise. Well, I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways, that without our hearts, without the feelings, the energies, the expressions of our hearts, one and all, we wouldn't be human. And today, the world needs our hearts, our heartfulness and whole humanness more, I feel, than ever. And I'd like to refrain the poem I've read another time toward that. It's called Our Humanity. It's a call. What we belong to, what we can point to out there around us, and what a singular gift. Our innate sentience, deeper humanness, shared with 8 billion other souls and bodies. What we can rise to in here, if and when we choose to, or are moved to. Summon the truer and fuller humanity that, whether clearly or obscurely, resides so surely within each of us. Whether it's eager or reticent, lost or longed for, sleeping or awakening. I remember ceremonies that began in the dark of a church or a country field, a first candle being lit from a source, and from that first lighting to the other held by the person beside. Then each holder in turn letting their flame light the next, until all were aglow. Until we soon cascadingly formed one immense body of light, a bonfire of human kindled kind, reflecting spirits, reflected in eyes, beaconing a remembering out, sending a hope-filled illumination out into the unseen and unknown. The same way the flame of your humanity and mine, instead of flickering alone, can be lit, fed, combined, and enlarged, can join the wicks, the rising spirits of all those who, from where we stand, we cannot see or know, but can feel, in the center of our chests. Enough to create a great forest, a great sea, family of igniting humanity, a shared light rise, the greatest that people in any time in history or memory have ever known. A conscious joining, generous emanating of human light, benevolent light, that brings wanted, beyond needed solace, strength, and wordless togetherness forth to soothe the heart and smooth the future of the trembling world. So in our last stretch, here's another call to our fuller heartedness. Ideally daily, exuberantly. It's called Begin Singing Early. Be the first bird at the first light of your day to fill this silence with song, with your song, with the hymn of your heart, the music of your mind, the melody of your body, with a singular song, one that comes from the mouth of your soul, comes early and daily when you let nature, your nature, have its open, wide way. And maybe, too, let's ripple out our heart energy out more largely to the world around us, not just specifically to individuals, but to our world of fellow humans, and to this extraordinary universe, in word, thought, or gesture. I had written this for a remarkable artist friend, Richard Kale, out in Seattle, but this is for us all. Love Letters to the Universe, it's called. The marvelous title of an Images Friends book, the very kind I send by hand and often to that address, universal delivery, readable by any and everyone ready to open into a nature and spirit-loving, fully living correspondence. Letters I stamp and post that the universe faithfully, feelingly answers in sign language to my address, very personal delivery, that I open to and read so eagerly. Well, remember the story, that the story of each heart is its own one-of-a-kind story. Its own drama, its own adventure, its own open-ended tale. What is yours? How would you express it in painting, dancing, writing, speaking? This is mine, at least as I felt it back in 2018. Next to last year for us. The story of my heart. It's a long story, wonderfully long, never tiring, never ending, nor I wanting it to end. A mystery at times, a mythology, a romance, oh yes, an adventure, always, sometimes an epic, but never anything apocalyptic. Entwined with other hearts, once so greatly, a paradise found, then a paradise lost, maybe one day regained. You could say a Bildungsroman in progress. A story both erotic and platonic, heroic and dramatic, full of voyages and returns, odysseys and poetries. A story still being written on the wind, through the body, the psyche, the eye of the mind, still being shaped and enlarged through all the storied, rubied moments of this living. The thrilling, telling tale of my heart, this wild, open, and inviting heart. Well, last, on a closing note, for now, all to be continued if you're listening in again, going forward, let's go forth from our core into the waiting wilds and wonders and becomings of our heartmost lives with this poem, Heart and Root. By heart and root is how, however unseen by others or in our own mirrors, we move, want to move, can move through the world, through the days, the dances of life, love, work, wondering, with our hearts wildly open, reaching up into the light, with our roots wildly free, reaching down into our earths, to all the places where we are deeply touched and nourished, where we can grow into our fullness, soothe our sorrows, heal our woundedness, where we can flow with such great aliveness. Thank you again for listening in, floating and feeling in. Appreciation, too, to those helping to support these programs and my poetic arts, greatly focused on nourishing spirits, uplifting hearts, and spurring greater openness to self and our aliveness. If you find this or any show or my larger efforts of a special value and wish to donate, you can easily in any amount by PayPal or Venmo or directly through my site or by mail to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891. I invite inspired patrons to bring me their way for a month or longer this summer or fall as a private poet in residence on their property to create a new flight of work to share with and dedicate to them. Feel free to reach out on that note. I also ongoingly invite like-spirited collaborators, other artists, to explore new creative projects and partnerings with, from the musical to the theatrical, and to those in search of a poetic narrator. Meanwhile, comments, questions, suggestions, always encouraged and welcome. Email Colin at thepoetorialist.com. Replays are online for re-listening and sharing. I hope you'll lean in again next week or soon again. Until then, dear listeners, Here's to being good horticulturalists, understanders and cultivators of greater heartfulness, and intrepid adventurers into its many wondrous wilds. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.